Hey, Katja, so nice to see you online. I saw you at NAMM, but it's really nice to have you online here for the Everything Saxophone podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a little more intimate here. NAMM was crazy. It was so loud. Everybody was playing, and there were like trumpets and saxophones, and people were practicing high notes, and it was like, ah.
Oh my God, it was lunacy. It was lunacy, and yeah, we just, even though we were next to a violin booth, but it was electric violin, and they were kind of like competing. Like I felt like they were. They saw me interviewing people and they had to get their 2 cents in just from playing. So, but I'm glad that we got the chance, now to talk and, really have a nice intimate conversation, because there's so much that you can share with our audience. So yeah, can you tell us briefly about yourself? Some people they may have seen you on stage, but they may not know about your background. So where did you grow up? How did you first start learning music?
Well, I'm German. I grew up in the north of Germany near the Baltic Sea. And I grew up doing all kinds of other things but music, like horseback riding, ballet dancing, all those things, because I wasn't supposed to play music. My parents didn't want me to play a musical instrument. So I did not start playing until I was 21.
Oh my gosh, wow.
And I had never touched an instrument before, but I wanted to play the saxophone. Like when I was 12, I want to play the saxophone. But my parents were like, no, we don't want you to be a musician. And the background to that is my brother, who also became a musician. He was already at the time, he was playing guitar. He was a little bit older than me, like 3.5 years older. And he was kind of rebellious. He played the guitar, but he was the rebel, and he was listening to, like rock and roll music, devil's music. So, and my parents, I think they were like, well, I guess they put music and the rebellious thing together, and they wanted me to become a nice girl, and they said that's why they didn't want me to play music. So,
you wanted to play in rock and roll too.
So here I am, the nice girl, not. So anyway, so that's why I didn't start playing until I was actually out of the house.
Let me ask you something. I know I'm going to go off on a tangent, but I've got to. So you started at 21. Did you ever feel like, because you started off later, that you felt behind in terms of?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Oh my God, yes. And after I had bought my first saxophone and I got the first note out, because I never even played a saxophone before, but I was like, I want to play the saxophone. So, and immediately I got a note out and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I didn't know how to read music either. So I had to literally count the notes and then go look at the fingering chart. Oh, that's supposed to be a C, it was really beginning. So what was my point? What was I going to say? I forgot.
just feeling behind and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, of course. Feeling behind. Yeah, no, totally. And I, immediately when I started playing or practicing, I was so dedicated. I practiced every day, in the beginning, for an hour maybe. And then it got more and more, and all my friends were like, "You're crazy. Why are you wasting your time? You should do something that actually will get you somewhere now." Because at the same time, I was also studying. I went to school to become a foreign language secretary in 4 languages. So I finished that. That was a year, and then I actually got a part-time job as a secretary to finance myself. And I went to university because I also wanted to become a degree in something smarter, because I wanted to study. And then I practiced. So it was I did three things. So I had basically absolutely no time to go what people do in their 20s, which is like a lot of partying and having fun. Because I had a part-time job as a secretary. I went to university to try to study something. And I tried to practice the saxophone for a couple of hours every day. And, but, you know, all my friends, they were all saying to me, no, you shouldn't be wasting your time. As a matter of fact, I was dating a guy at the time, like very early on when I started. I was about 23, and he was one of the most successful studio drummers in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So he would pick me up from my little practice room, you know, and he would hear me how I was trying to practice. You know, this was like 2 years after I had started playing, and of course it sounded horrible, you know. And I always tried to sound like David Sanborn, so I would like bite hard, to do everything completely wrong. My lips were bleeding.
Oh.
He would pick me up from, you know, because I was trying to get those high notes. I was like, yeah. And anyway, so I remember this one time, him and I went to a cocktail bar after he picked me up from the rehearsal space. And he said exactly that. He said, you know what, you're wasting your time. You know, you should be doing something else, because this is not going to get you anywhere. So in a way, you know, I got really mad at him for saying that, but in a way, it's kind of like that bird effect. Do you remember that story where the drummer throws a cymbal at Bird?
Yeah.
You know, tell him you need to go practice or something. So it's kind of like that. So, you know, down deep inside, I was like, I'm going to show it to you, you know. And then it's really funny, like many, many years later, after I got the gig with Rod Stewart, of course, I hadn't been in touch with that guy anymore. We had broken up like many, many, many years ago. But he was actually the first one I called. I said, hey, how are you doing? Yeah. And then he asked me what I was doing. I was like, yeah, I'm doing great. You know, I just got the gig with Rod Stewart. So I just wanted to share this with you, and thank you for kicking me in the A, you know, back then, made me want to practice more. So, but anyway, so all those years, of course, I felt, you know, totally behind, and that's why I stopped focusing on becoming a good jazz player, like a bebop player. I mean, I love to play jazz, but I play easy jazz, like, you know, like easy changes. Like, I'm not a bebop player. I never really got to focus on that too much. So,
yeah. Let me ask you something. So after he said that to you, and then, you know, you were trying to play David Sanborn types of stuff, you know, all these high notes, your lips are bleeding, whatever. What did you that's so funny, but it's, oh my God, that hurts. What did you do? What did you do after that? Like, did you study with a teacher? How did you change your focus?
Oh yeah, I mean, I always studied with teachers. I mean, I never studied at university or anything, because I was already too old in order to be and too bad in order to be enrolled in like a university. You know, they would never have accepted me. So, but I studied with some private teachers. Like, I took lessons like maybe once a week, and I practiced a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so then
but you know, but most of those teachers, it's like when you start to play the saxophone, and I'm sure it's the same, you know, for you. I don't know, you're more of a rock player too, right?
I play rock, blues, but I also do jazz as well.
Yeah, but you know, every time you pick up the saxophone and somebody wants to teach you, you know, everybody always just focuses on jazz. That's the only thing that they give you to learn. It's like, oh, here's some Charlie Parker that you need to study. Here's some Coltrane you need to study. And I was like, I never had listened to Coltrane before. And I was like, I don't understand this. It's like, I didn't understand the music. But then, you know, like, it definitely grew on me the more and more I studied it. And I studied a lot of it, you know, like Charlie Parker and Coltrane and stuff like that. Amazing. then I started to understand it. But in the beginning, I was like, wow, this is like crazy.
Yeah, really complex and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So how did you get, I guess my question is, like, when you studied with those teachers, were they giving you any kind of classical music? Were they, giving you any kind of guidance? Was it more technical stuff?
Not at all. I mean, you mean classical music? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, not at all. It was very, very basic and very, I don't know, what you call it, mainstream. Like the lessons I had, like, typical like scale exercises, and then like Charlie Parker solos to play, and aerosols to work with. And then at some point they were like, okay, you need to start transcribing solos, which was my favorite. I would transcribe solos. I mean, I would write them out, but I would memorize everything always. Yeah, I mean, I guess very like regular, like what a regular teacher would do.
What kind of solos did they have you start to transcribe?
Kind of Blue. I guess that's where everybody starts,
Miles Davis, yeah, okay.
Like Miles Davis, like, yeah, that was, and then Emily, and then eventually I started to develop my own taste and what I like to listen to. I mean, I absolutely love Cannibal Adderley. He's one of my favorite alto players, But at the time also, do you remember, well, of course you remember Miles Davis when he had Kenny Garrett in the group. That was he became one of my favorite alto players then. That was like in the 80s, So, and then I started listening to Michael Brecker, and then eventually, I found my way to what I really love now is all those soul players like Junior Walker and the All Stars, Wilton Felder from the Crusaders, and of course, David Sanborn and Maceo Parker. So,
did you? And when you found your way to those soul players, like, was at that point were your teachers? Were you studying with a teacher? Were they, helping you to understand how to, the nuances with playing that style of music, or did you just learn it by yourself?
Not anymore. I stopped taking lessons, and I'm not proud of that. A long time ago, a very long time ago. And I'm sure there's a million things that I'm doing wrong. I went and I wanted to take lessons from, who was it? I think it was Bob Shepard. I went to take lessons with Bob. He's an amazing player. And I just wanted to, this was not that long ago, a couple of years ago. I wanted to take lessons and, to play some more jazz stuff. And he told me that I needed to change my embouchure completely. And I was like, he said he didn't want to, he said that's what I needed to do first. And I was like, and I got kind of like, I lost interest then because, I like my sound. Everybody else always likes my sound. And I didn't really want to spend that much time in changing something that works for me somehow.
Yeah. So
I stopped taking lessons with him. That didn't work out very well, did it?
Well, because he was going to be focusing on something that didn't interest you, at that moment. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. And, and it, again, your sound is great, and other people like your sound, and it's getting you where you need to go. So let me ask you this question: the transition from Germany to, to America, what happened? When did that happen? How did it happen?
Okay, that happened in the December of 97.
Okay.
So it's been 22 years or 23rd year now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I came here, my brother already lived here, my brother ended up becoming the bass player for the Scorpions, big rock and roll band.
Oh yeah, okay.
So he doesn't play with them anymore, but he was with them for like 11 or 12 years. And at the time, like he moved here in the I think late 80s already. And then somehow he got the gig with the Scorpions. He moved back to Germany for a while, and then eventually he moved back here. So, and in that year, 97, I was going through a breakup with my ex-boyfriend that I was living with in Germany, and I was really kind of heartbroken, and I needed to get away. So I came here to visit my brother, and my brother took me to the Baked Potato, which at the time, I don't know if you ever went there at the time. Teddy Andrealis, he was the keyboard player from Guns N' Roses. He did a jam session there, like I believe it was every Monday. And it was like a complete rock and roll jam, like blues, rock, soul jam. And all the guys from all the big bands, like Toto, all those guys, Guns N' Roses, all those guys would hang there. And so I went, and my brother introduced me, and I got to sit in with those guys. And then, I'm like here in LA, I'm playing with all these amazing musicians. And I had to go back home because I was only here on vacation, like 2 weeks later, to basically an empty apartment because my boyfriend just left. We had lived together, and also what I was doing musically there wasn't really that fulfilling to me. I actually was teaching at that time because I ended up, the school, where I used to take lessons, I ended up teaching there then. So I was teaching, which was fine, but I had to teach group classes, which was horrible because they put they were all beginners, but still a beginner, and beginner is never the same level. So I had 2 to 3 beginners in a group. Some were young, 10-year-old kids. Some were housewives that wanted to pick up the saxophone. Some were really inspired and practiced, and others never practiced. So it was really hard for me to teach those lessons. It was like, oh, this is really hard. And so the other bands that I had been playing with, then it was kind of getting old too, so I was looking for a challenge. So anyway, so from one day to the other, I decided I'm going to move to California. And it was never planned. When I came here for vacation, it was not planned. But I was like, I'm just going to do this. And I went home, and I gave away all my furniture, sold my car, all within a month, and I came back here. And that's it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. All right. So gosh, that's such a change. So the cool thing though, you had that great experience. By the way, folks, the Baked Potato is a venue, in Los Angeles. It's very well known. Bob Reynolds plays there often enough. They still have jams. I think it's blues based, maybe a little rock tinged and stuff like that. But
oh yeah.
Yeah. Baked Potatoes are one of the great venues that's still around.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so you did that huge change, and you came here. What did you do? Then what did you do from that point? How did you wind up, doing all the stuff that you're doing today?
Well, I moved here. Of course, I had absolutely no connections besides those of the Baked Potato, and I would go there every Monday. I was there every Monday, and it was a big party crowd. We all had a lot of fun. I got to meet a lot of people. Then I focused on meeting other people. So 22 years ago, LA was different. Were you in LA 22 years ago?
No, I'm originally from New York. I've only been here about 5 years.
So back then there were a lot of restaurants that had live music, and a lot of those restaurants had amazing musicians. So what I would do basically, because I was by myself, my brother and I were completely different, but he helped me a little bit, but he has a different scene that he hangs out with. So I would basically find a club every night, a different club where there was live music. I looked it up in the LA Weekly. You remember LA Weekly?
Yeah.
And just would go take my saxophone by myself and then just introduce myself to the band and say, hey, I just moved here from Germany. Can I sit in with you? So that's how I ended up networking and meeting a lot of people. So I ended up meeting Jeff Goldblum like that. That was like, I believe in 98, because he, you know, he has a jazz band.
Yeah.
And he used to play every, I don't know, Monday, Tuesday, one of those nights. And so I ended up playing with him like almost every week. So that was fun. And, you know, so that way I developed. And then eventually I got my first paying gig after 1 year of doing that.
Oh, wow.
I had my first paying gig, which was actually in Vegas at the Fontana Lounge at the Bellagio Hotel, which had just opened up. And so I was there for 2 months, and they asked me if I wanted to move there, but I was like, no, you know, I didn't move to LA to end up in the Vegas lounge. So I didn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, and then I kept like hustling and doing that and practicing. I was practicing hours and hours every day. And then I played with a guy called Branscombe Richmond. You might know him. He's also an actor. He was on a TV show called The Renegades.
Okay.
With Lorenzo Lamas.
Yeah.
So I toured with him. That was kind of fun. And then eventually I got the gig with Rod, and that was my big break. So
cool. So yeah, so let's talk about that for a second. And but before we get there, the styles of music that you were playing during this time when you just moved to LA, was it all styles of music or anything specific?
No, you know, at that time I was actually heavy into Coltrane. I was funny enough, at that time I was like really shredding Coltrane solos and trying to, you know, understand all of it and stuff. So yeah, I was doing a lot of that, transcribing all kinds of solos. So I wasn't even focusing on the rock stuff, and I didn't have a big repertoire of songs either, because not having been like a jam musician, like somebody that goes to jam sessions a lot, because I didn't do that in Germany at all. That only started here. And I realized that there's, you know, all these songs that people just know because they grew up with them and they just, you know, they just know them. So I started working a little bit on building a repertoire. Like, you know, like, I mean, funny example, like Superstition, you know, like that song. Like learn songs like that everybody always plays at jams. And I had to, in order to know which songs those were, I actually had to go to the jams to find out, oh, okay, that's a song that gets played a lot, so I better learn that. So I was doing that, and then same with the Jeff Goldblum Jazz Jam. You know, I went there, and then I was like figuring out, what tunes are they doing? Oh, okay, so I better go home and learn those so I can sit in on those the next time. So, yeah.
That's great advice. Actually, that's great advice for people. And I'm digging deep into this for a reason, because a lot of people, I always get a lot of people that say, oh, you know, I'm 28 years old. I'm too late to learn, you know, I'm too old to learn how to play saxophone or to learn jazz or whatever. And that's so far from the truth. You know, not just your story just totally proves that, but I mean, I teach people that are in their mid 70s, you know, that are just starting to learn jazz. So this is live proof right here. Actually, this works out. This is great. And, you know, you're also giving great advice in terms of, you know, you totally moved to a different country, you know, totally different culture, right? And, you know, how you survived, you know, basically, you know, how you created a playing career, you know, some really good advice there as well. So now let's talk about, you know, you also, you in reading your bio and stuff like that, you said that you sat in with the Scorpions, and you also did a guest appearance with Saga. I like that group too. So how did that stuff work out?
Well, that's, you know, those, of course, they end up on my bio, but really, well, the Scorpions thing, that happened because of my brother. And of course, there's no saxophone in Scorpions music, but they did a corporate event, and it was some kind of an Elvis Presley celebration where they performed some Elvis Presley songs. And one of the or two of the songs had saxophone on it, so they were like, "Oh, let's get Katja to play it." So anyway, of course, that ends up on the bio as And then Saga, that's kind of a similar story, really, because my ex-boyfriend, the one that I broke up with, or we separated while I was still living in Germany right before I moved here. He was a guitar player. I mean, he is a guitar player. He still is a guitar player. And Saga, I mean, that's like they have some cool, difficult, stuff to play. And my ex-boyfriend, he's an amazing guitar player. He actually, I actually met him in LA long time ago, because he was living here, not like an earlier time when I was visiting my brother here in the 80s. So, but so Saga, I guess, was on tour in Germany. This was like, I don't know,
mid 80s, I think, right?
No. That must have been maybe 2 years, 1 or 2 years before I moved here, because I was with Marcus, with my ex-boyfriend. So it was probably 95, maybe 95. And they had some problems with their guitar player. I don't know what it was. Like, I think he got sick while they were on tour, and they needed a replacement, like basically overnight. So my ex-boyfriend got the call to go on tour with them, and he he learned like all those crazy songs like within, I don't know, 2 days or something. And then so he went on tour with them, and then I went with them for a little while on tour, like a couple of days. And of course, I had my saxophone with me, and so whenever they were doing sound check, I would find the bathroom of the club, and practice the saxophone. And there's one song that they did where the keyboard player always played a clarinet solo. Yeah, he's not a clarinet. I mean, he's a keyboard player, but he also plays some clarinet. So when they heard that I was playing the saxophone, they were like, "Oh my God, you should come and play with us." So I ended up a couple of times. I ended up doing like a dueling. How do you call it? A duel.
A duet.
Duet, yeah. So we played back and forth. So that's how I ended up playing with Saga.
Cool. Yeah, Saga's an interesting group. They had two big hits in the US, but I remember the lines were, again, there's no saxes or anything like that in there, but there were intricate guitar lines, and
Oh yeah, totally.
It's cool though.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, all right. So now let's go to, how did you get the call for Rod Stewart? How did that work out?
Well, that was basically having paid my dues, I think, because I had been here for 4 years already in Los Angeles. And to be honest with you, I was about to give up because it was really hard. I didn't really do very well with like making money or getting gigs or whatever. So it was hard. It was really hard. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then, well, do you want me to tell you the whole story? It's kind of a crazy story.
Yeah,
a little bit. One of the reasons, or okay, I gotta go back. When I was 20 years old, I had a boyfriend who was half American, and he was a bass player, and he studied music in San Jose, here in California. So I went and visited him here, and he did a gig, and he played in the band with a female saxophone player from the Bay Area. Her name is Diana Tucker. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my God, that's what I've been wanting to do my whole life. I've been wanting to play the saxophone. So she was the reason why I then decided, okay, now I'm actually going to start playing the saxophone. So that's all because of my friend Andy Hess. who I'm still friends with. He then, after all those years, he moved to New York, and he's lived there for a long time now, and he's a very successful bass player and tours with many people. So in 2001, Andy was on tour with Black Crowes, and they were going to do a concert here in Los Angeles on September 11th.
Oh.
But he had a day off the night before, September 10th. So he calls me, and I was really depressed. I wanted to go back home, move back to Germany because things weren't happening. And he's like, hey, I'm in town. I'm playing a gig tomorrow with the Black Crowes. First of all, I want you to come. And tonight I'm off, so let's go have a drink. Because we're still friends. And, I want to see you. I want to catch up. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to go. He's like, come on, I'll buy you a drink. So he drags me out, and we go to, I believe it wasn't the Mint. It was what's that other place on Pico across the Joint? What was it called? It doesn't exist anymore, I think.
I wouldn't know then.
Anyway, so we went there, and that's where I ran into Carmen Rojas, who was a musical director for Rod Stewart at the time. I had met him once before, and he kind of remembered that I was a sax player. And he said to me, hey, man, it's good to see you. It's too bad I didn't have your information because I just had to hire a female saxophone player for Rod Stewart's band. But I already have somebody.
Oh.
I'm like, oh, that's too bad, bummer. Damn it. But he said, well, do you have a demo or something, just in case? So, and I had just recorded like some of my original material, which I've always been writing a little bit. And so I gave that package to him. And anyway, next morning, September 11th happens. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so horrible. I was like completely devastated. I was like, I think I'm definitely moving back to Germany now. I was ready to give up. But then like about 10 days later, I get this phone call from Carmine where he's like, oh my God, things haven't been working out with the other saxophone player. Could you maybe come in for an audition tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock? And I'm like, oh, let me check my busy schedule. I think I can do it. Of course, I had nothing in my books. So he comes by that evening, like at, I don't know, like 6 in the evening or something, drops off CD with like 5 songs for me to learn. Because, of course, there's no shit. They don't give you sheet music. They just say, here, learn the songs. It's rock and roll,
Yeah.
So, and then I practiced all night. But I was like, I didn't care anymore. Sometimes when you're at a point where you just kind of like, yeah, it's not going to happen anyway, so I don't care anymore. I still practiced like crazy. I had all my parts down. And so the next morning I went in there, I had my baritone, my alto, and my tenor with me. I went in with like sneakers, jeans, and a baseball hat, like and like a tank top. Didn't dress up at all. I was like, yeah.
Wow.
So and then I just did that audition. The band was there, and I was like a little scared. And Rod and his now wife Penny were standing behind the soundboard. And I did a solo, and some guys have all the luck. And I had my eyes closed. I played, and then I opened it up, and then they were standing behind the soundboard like that.
Oh, cool.
And they're like, okay, that's it. So then the musical director took me on the side, and he said, yeah, so good news is you got the gig. Bad news is there's no more rehearsals, and the next show is in like 4 days, and the gear has to go on the truck now. So you have to learn the whole show by yourself at home. So that's what happened, and that's what I did.
Question for you. So when you said you played the solo to Some Guys Have All the Luck, did you play, and this is going to be another conversation too, did you play the solo that was on the record, or did you create your own?
No, I played. I didn't play this. It was kind of a mixture in between the record and what the other guy that played on the recording had. The guy that was doing it before me. They had somebody. They had somebody for the leg before me, but he didn't last very long. He was only there for like that one particular leg, but they had a live tape of him playing. So I kind of like took that as a, as an idea and listened to the original a little bit. Of course, um, all the keys were different, like that at the time they didn't do anything in the original keys. So, you couldn't really just listen to the solo. I mean, you would have to transpose it anyway.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I would have thought that it would have been the original keys.
No, they didn't, I guess, I mean, a lot of singers take the music down when they do it live,
Okay. So then you kind of did, you took like little quotes and stuff here and there, and you kind of created your own, because, there's always like, a discussion, do you play those iconic solos? You know what I mean? Do you play those iconic solos that were, recorded, or do you create your own? So
I think it depends on the song, for instance, like all those years, I basically played the same solo that is on the recording. And Do You Think I'm Sexy?
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like the solo on Money. It's like people want to hear, or Urgent. Foreigners Urgent. People want to hear that. If there's another solo like This Old Heart of Mine, for instance, I kind of like made up my own. I think it depends on the song. I find it. The problem with playing the original solo for me was always to try to make it a little bit your own, because I was always like trying to nail it the way it was originally played. And then once I had that down, I'm like, well, maybe I should change it up a little bit so I make it more my own. I found that really hard to do back then. Now, because I've worked on a lot of my playing in the last 5 years where I have not been with Rod, and now I think I would have a totally different approach, because I'm a lot looser. I'm not so, oh my god, I can't mess up. No, I'm like, you know what? No, I got more confidence now. Funny enough, now I'm not playing with a big star anymore at the moment, but I have a lot more confidence in my playing right now. Because when you tour with a big artist like that, you're super busy all the time. Practicing is hard, because you're always tired. You're always traveling. You're always in a hotel room. The last 5 years where I didn't travel with anybody, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I'm practicing a lot.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad that you're mentioning this, because I was going to ask you, what is life like? How did you survive on the road?
How did I survive on the road?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like you're saying, there's not, people think, oh, you just do a show, that's it. But you also have the sound check, you have the traveling time, you have to adjust for, time zone changes and all that kind of thing. Maybe there's press and media and that kind of thing.
When you're doing a gig like that, the gig, the actual playing the concert is the easy part. That's the easiest of everything. It's fun, it's easy, but everything else around it is hard in your body. It's hard in your soul too. I mean, as you say, you travel all the time. You have, sometimes you don't have time to get over your jet lag. Sometimes you have to travel to like the other side of the world for just one show, and then you have to come right back. You have no time to adjust. You can't sleep, or you're on the tour bus, and when you're on the tour bus, a lot of times you get to the hotel like at 5 a.m, and then you have to you just fell asleep, and you have to get up, go check into the hotel, get your luggage, then it's another 2 hours until you fall asleep again. And then you like wake up and you're like, oh, you know, where am I? And then you have to get ready to go to sound check. So it's hard. It's hard in your body and it's hard in your soul. But I loved it. You know, I mean, I wouldn't want to change it for anything. I mean, I got to travel the world. Like a lot of people pay money for that. You know, I mean, I've seen pretty much every part of the world. So I'm super, super grateful for that. I've met some amazing people through the world. And I got to travel with some friends, you know, like family. It was like everybody is like family when you're on tour.
Are you still in touch with the people that you toured with from Rod Stewart's band?
Yeah, most of them, you know, it's gotten a little less lately because they have been very busy. And, you know, I know how it is when you're on tour. I personally was one of those people that did not reach out to most other people that weren't on tour with me. I know there's other people that do that. They live off that. I was like more like, it's like a different world, you know, and people can't really, I think it's hard to talk to people that don't know what it's like to be on tour. It's hard to explain it to them because, you know, then they always ask, so how's the show? How's the show? I'm like, the show is great. Other shows are great, you know. But it's hard to explain all the other stuff that comes with it because nobody
can't relate to it because
can relate to it. Exactly. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, because, you know, one show, you know, let's say 2-hour show, all the prep that has to go on with that, you know, I mean, even the sound check, you know, sometimes it's a half an hour, sometimes it's an hour, whatever, but it takes a long time to mic everybody, to get set up, and, you know, all just the prep work that you have to do for those glorious 2 hours. And then you're having the time of your life on stage, and then it's done. It's like, okay, now we got to, you know, do all the other work for the show. You know, the show's like, it's like the show's like dessert. And then the rest of the time is all like, you know, the dinner portion of it, you know, the meal that you got to go through in order to get to the dessert.
Yeah, true.
You know, I wanted to backtrack to one thing that I was curious about when you were talking about, you know, playing the recorded solo versus, you know, creating your own. Did Rod Stewart have any, like, you know, input? Did he say, I want you to play, you know, the recorded solo in this one? Or did he just say, just do what you want?
He never said anything to me, really.
Okay.
He never said anything to me. The only time he ever said something to me was the song Having a Party. I had a solo in Having a Party, and he wanted me to play da, 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 da. What's that? It's Junior. Oh man, I can't think of that name right now of that song. But he wanted me to play that melody, that saxophone melody, okay, which had nothing to do with that with that song. What is that name of that song right now? It's a Junior Walker.
Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. You know what? It's going to come to you as soon as we're done. You're like, oh, I got it.
Oh my God. I'm having a total brain fart right now. Let me see if I can Google Junior Walker right now. Okay, so cool. Yeah, so he wanted me to play that, and I think it was Junior Walker. Anyway, it's not that important.
Okay, but the interesting thing though is that so you had the freedom to, you know, do what you wanted in a sense. You know, you could improvise your own, or you could play the recorded solo. You know, because it's like I said, it's a conundrum for some people. You know, I guess it depends on the artist that you're performing with, the song. You know, how iconic is that song? How iconic is that solo?
Yeah.
But I'm sure that here's the other question I had for you too. If you had to play the same solos every night, you know, for so many years that you were on tour, would that have burned you out? You know, or because you had the freedom to do what you wanted, did that make it more exciting?
Yeah. So I chose to keep playing the same solo a lot of times because I was afraid of messing up. You know, I mean, when you're like in front of like, I don't know, like sometimes we did stadiums in front of like whatever 80,000 people, you know, you're like, do I want to risk like playing something that sounds stupid, or do I want to make a strong impression on everybody and play what I know I can do and what I got on my fingers?
Yeah.
So it was, you know, I was afraid a lot of times to take it away from what I knew. And again, you know, I think if I was in this situation now, I would be different. I would take a lot more freedom doing, you know, what I do, because I feel like I'm a lot stronger and a lot more confident, and you know, I know that I can do it. But I was a little timid, you know, at the time, so a little afraid sometimes.
Yeah, in front of 80,000 people. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
it's, you know, that's a lot of pressure. You know, it's definitely a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And it's a
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're sharing that insight, because, you know, not that many people have that opportunity to play in front of tens of thousands of people, you know, every night for many, many years. So, you know,
Yeah.
and plus the fact too, we were talking about the life of touring. You don't get all the opportunity to practice, you know, so it's just a question of maintaining your chops and, you know, surviving the road, you know, the hazards of the road, so to speak. So it's really interesting. And I think you also have a, you know, a solo recording career, if you want to talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, I've always kind of like written my own music, and I have 3 solo CDs out. The first one came out in 2007. And that was kind of like my first official CD, even though I had written stuff before and I had recorded stuff before, but I never released it. I'm actually thinking of releasing some of those early recordings of mine now, because as I have them, you know, they're just laying around. It's so easy to release a track right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first record, and I worked together with this guy called Jeff Carruthers, producer, and he was a big smooth jazz producer at the time. And in 2007, smooth jazz was really big, and he wanted me to do a smooth jazz record, but I said no. I don't want to do a smooth jazz record. I'm not a smooth jazz person. I just didn't like the smooth jazz. It was too smooth for me. You know, too elevator music for me. So we ended up doing this record, which was a little bit more, I don't know, it's a little more jazzy, but it didn't really fit any genre. But it's still a nice record, and it's got a lot of like covers on there, but it's got also 2 of my original tunes on there. Then I did a second album, and that idea started with the title. I figured it would be fun to make a record that's called Porn Star, because people were always like, "What?" It's like, no, not. It's Horn Star, because you know you get that same reaction from everybody. So I was like, I'm going to make a record and I'm going to call it that. But I was like, well, you know, I don't really want to do. It needs to be something more edgy, you know. So I ended up doing it's like a house, like dance music. It's dance music. I released that in 2010, and then in 2015 I released my latest album called Never Stand Still, which is really what I love doing. It's like 70s inspired soul, you know, by like all the, you know, Junior Walker meets, you know, Tower of Power. You know, I've got a lot of horn section stuff on there. I wrote a lot of horn section stuff. I play Barry too. I love playing Barry. So yeah, that was super fun. And for that one, this is another interesting thing I can mention real quick, because I had no money to do this record. And I, you know, me and Jeff Carruthers, who was the producer that produced my first record, we both wrote and produced the record together. So the whole thing was like, and produced and arranged. But I wanted to do a retro sounding 70s record, and in order for that you need like studio time. And I ended up doing an Indiegogo campaign, like a crowdfunding campaign, because it's very expensive, you know, to go in the studio and hire all the musicians and stuff like that, and you know, the mixing, the mastering, all that. So I did an Indiegogo campaign, and I ended up raising over $25,000. But you know, at the time it was easy for me because I was still with Rod Stewart, and you know, a lot of Rod Stewart fans ended up helping with the Indiegogo campaign, and I had a lot of cool perks. You know, Rod donated some stuff like a jacket that he wore on stage. You know, he signed a couple of things for me that I was then able to put on there for like big perks. So yeah, so that was kind of cool. So that's another thing that, you know, people might be wanting to look into, that's something you can do, like do a crowdfunding. But that only works if you have a big following on Facebook.
Yeah, any kind of social media. Yeah, because it is so expensive to produce albums nowadays, and you see a lot of people now doing that. Alex Hahn, who plays with Marcus Miller, recently did that for one of his latest CDs, and yeah, it just takes so much money. But you know, this actually leads great into, you know, you're talking about like soul playing and Junior Walker types of stuff. This leads into your book. So can you talk about the book that you have?
Oh yeah, so out of the well, I did this Never Stand Still thing, and then out of that, something completely else developed. I did a project also with Jeff Carruthers for Big Fish Audio. Does that ring a bell? It's like a sample library kind of a thing. So we ended up doing a 70s kit for them, where we basically did these little tracks that people can buy. So they buy the whole thing. And I wrote some horn section stuff. It was like focusing on horn section and horns in general, 70s sounding stuff. So that one also has like about, I believe, 12 tracks on it. And as a bonus, I thought it would be cool to give the people that buy it some saxophone licks along with it, so they can, if they want a saxophone solo, they can create their own saxophone solo. So I started collecting and writing out all these licks that I thought were kind of like within that genre, because I wanted to add it to that Big Fish Audio project. And so I collected all these licks and I recorded them all with Jeff Carruthers. But then after all, when the Big Fish Audio project came out, they ended up not using it. Like they ended up not using the saxophone licks. I don't know why, because I thought it would have been a great bonus, you know, for people to they can just build their own solo. It's great. But they didn't end up using it. So here I am now with all these papers here. I can show you actually what they look like.
Oh, cool.
This is all, you know, I still handwrite all my stuff. So I wrote like a bunch of these licks, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do with this now? And then I was like, well, I have all the material for a book. So yeah, I contacted Hal Leonard about it. They didn't seem interested. Talked to somebody else that didn't seem interested. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna do it myself then. So that's what I did.
Cool. So can you tell us the name of the book, and you know, we've got the inspiration for it, but the name of the book, and what type of player do you think this is best for? Like, you know, beginner, intermediate, advanced? that kind of thing?
It's called 101 Soulful Funk Licks, and I think it's it could be used for all kinds of levels of players. The licks that I wrote down, most of them are quite short, very easy to memorize. I purposely did it that way so you can memorize them easily, and I also only wrote them out in only one key, and I want the person who works with the book, I want them to take one lick and then just memorize it and then start transposing it in every key. I purposely did not write them out in every key because I think it's better to do it in your head, in your mind. But most of them are quite simple. Some of them are a little more complex, a little longer. But I think it's a great foundation to build a rocking, funky, soulful solo on. Just to have short little phrases that you can work with, and you can develop them. I don't know. I just don't like saxophone players that noodle too much. That play a lot of notes that have no meaning. I used to be one of those.
Okay. All right. So you mean just like endless lines? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, endless lines and just a lot of notes. I think if you have a small, short, strong statement, it's a lot more effectful than a lot of notes.
Interesting. Can you demo some of those licks so people can get an idea of
okay.
That would be really cool.
All right. Well, I got I have some. Just see what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the alto because I have different licks for. Let's see.
So you have like different licks based on like alto would play these types of lines, Barry would play these. I noticed that in the book. Like
yeah,
Barry,
I mean, you can really play. Of course, you can play all those licks on every instrument. You can play these licks on the piano, on the guitar, on all kinds of instruments. I just kind of like when I kind of like wrote these licks out, I was like, these sound the best on the alto or on the tenor, or because some of them also, like you'll hear when I pick up my tenor, some of them I like to play in the upper register, which sounds different on the alto. Anyway, all right, so let's see. Okay, let's see. So here's the very first lick in the book, and this is like the super simple lick.
Right.
Just a couple of notes. So very, very simple. Probably if an advanced player will hear this, they'll be like, "Oh my God, that's crazy! I'm not going to buy a book for that." I totally understand. I wouldn't either. So, but again, it's a compilation of licks, and I think you just have to check it out. So here's a couple of other alto licks, and I'm actually gonna look at my notes here so I see whatever I'm.
Cool. Right, cool.
Let's see. So, stuff like that.
Cool.
Let's see it. Huh?
I was going to ask too, because people are going to ask, what equipment do you have? Like, if you could tell us the equipment that you have for each horn.
Oh my God, you don't want to ask me that, because I'm like I can totally, I'll tell you, but I've been playing the same setup because it works for me, but I don't know if it works for anybody else. First of all, I'm allergic to cane, so I have to play plastic reeds. So that's something that probably will not work for most people. But I'm playing these 4-stone reeds. They're really great. They're from Japan. I really like them a lot. They're pretty even sounding. Then on my alto, I'm playing a Theowani mouthpiece. And I play this Oleg neck, which, I don't really necessarily play that. I have the original neck as well. And this is a old Mark VI sax.
Silver. Okay, cool.
Silver plated. And then my tenor. My tenor is also Mark VI. Play a Guardala mouthpiece. Also the same 4-stone reeds, and this is also the Oleg leg, but it's not mandatory. I just switch it around. I'm having issues with my tenor. Something is leaking here. Anyway, so yeah, so the tenor licks or these are a little more advanced, so it goes from very simple to a little more advanced. And anyway, those are a couple of examples.
Cool. No, you sound awesome. You sound awesome. I've seen you live too.
It's another lick, like more on the rhythmic, little longer, and it's got like some rhythmic stuff. So anyway, so it's a real complete variation of stuff,
Yeah, and like I said, I've seen you live. You're awesome, and these sound great. These sound fantastic. And I started looking through the book and everything, and yeah, these are really cool licks. And what I would probably say is, people definitely need to be able to read, in order to play this book, because the rhythms they start off, decent enough. They're not too complicated, but then rhythmically it gets a little bit challenging as you get further along in the licks and stuff like that. Yeah, but it sounds really cool. It sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. Now, so before we go, a couple of things. So where can people find you online?
My website, KatjaRieckermann.com. Do you want me to spell that, or can you put that in there, or?
I'm going to put a link in the show notes. Absolutely.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. And then also Instagram, Katja Sax, at Katja R Sax, but I can email you that too. And then Facebook, I'll email you those links when we hang up. When we hang up the phone. It's not really like, imagine we would have done this like back in the day with a real phone on our heads.
I know. It's crazy. We're on Zoom right now. And folks, we're doing this at the time when, the coronavirus we're all kind of sheltered in place and stuff. So we're using Zoom, and, we're making awesome use of our time right now, which is really cool. And by the way, from what I know we can buy your book on your website, and I'll put the link in the show notes for people if they want to check it out. Some really cool licks. Tim Price does a great forward in there, praising you and you're playing and all that kind of stuff. Tim's a great player, great saxophone and jazz mind. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that was so awesome that he did that. He was so supportive with this, because I asked him, I have this book, the Rock Licks book that he released. I actually had bought it, years ago. I didn't even know him then. And then, do you know about this book?
Yeah.
So then when I got to know him a little better, kept running him at the NAMM show. And when I had the idea about this book, I decided, well, let me just call Tim and ask him about, his experience with the book. So, and he was so super kind, to help me through this a little bit and, write that, how do you say that? Preface?
Or the preface or the forward.
Preface.
Yeah.
Preface. Yeah, that's one of those words, because I'm German. Some words I don't know how to pronounce. So preface?
Yeah.
Preface. Not preface.
It's all good. You speak very well. You speak English very well. So that's cool. So no, let me ask you another question too. What upcoming, I know again for all of us, all of our gigs have been canceled right now, but are there any upcoming projects that you have, any shows that are coming up, late summer, early fall?
Everything has been canceled so far. I have absolutely nothing going on right now. So it's a bummer, because I was actually going to be quite busy last month and this month, but yeah, it's all done. But I've been doing the Facebook Live things. I think you are too. You're doing it as well, right?
Yeah. So tell everybody. Oh, I'm sorry.
How often do you do it?
I've been doing Facebook Lives usually every Tuesday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. But you do yours, I think you do yours more frequently than I do. Can you talk about that?
I don't know if it's a good idea. That maybe I should come up with a regular day and time, but I kind of do it whenever I feel inspired, especially during these times now where I find it super hard. I mean, we're all isolated. I haven't seen anybody else than my brother in 5 weeks, and except for when I go grocery shopping. And I sometimes, some days are really hard and I get really depressed, and then other days I'm like, I get inspired and I'm like, oh, let me do a Facebook Live so I actually can interact with people, and it gives me a reason to get up and come up with a set list and think about what I want to play and stuff. So it helps me. So I guess for me it depends on the day, what mood I'm in, and I'm like, yeah, I think I can do this today. I'm in a good mood, because you don't really want to do a Facebook Live when you're depressed.
No, that's true.
I mean, I don't want to see myself when I'm depressed. I don't want to see anybody else seeing me depressed either. And
No, that's true. It's been tough, and the interesting thing too, here in California, we haven't had the best weather. It's been like we're in Seattle. It's like
weird. So weird. I'm happy about that. Because for me it's easier to just stay inside and like be stuck at home when it's raining. I actually have been going on walks in the rain every day for an hour. That's the only exercise I've been doing. I need to start exercising, but I go on walks every day. Don't tell anybody, but I'm wearing a mask when I go on my walks here in the neighborhood. And I live in the hills, so whenever I see somebody else coming, I go on the other side of the street. I do the social distancing, and there's hardly any people out there, but I need to get out, once a day. Yeah, so anyway, so you're doing yours Tuesday at 3. I need to tune in tomorrow. What do you do on yours? Do you play jazz stuff? What kind of stuff do you play?
So mine's a little bit different. So I do like different topics, and it's mostly teaching topics.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. And so what I've been doing during, the coronavirus is, like, when I've taken walks in my neighborhood, I noticed how quiet it is. It's
Mhm.
like eerily quiet. Like, it's so quiet, it's deafening. And so I said, you know what? I got to wake things up here. And I've got a lot of people on my block that are elderly, and they're in the house, so I said, let me try to brighten the mood. So I'm doing my porch concerts. And
That's awesome.
yeah, so I just open the door, I bring out, I've got backing tracks, I have a wireless Bose speaker, and I just play my tenor sax, and I'll do jazz standards, I'll do some soul music, I'll do some pop music, I'll do some smooth jazz stuff, whatever. Like, I have some ideas about what I want to play, and then I'm gauging the crowd and stuff like that, and I'll just pull out some stuff and I'll play for an hour. And I've had people come, and I announce it. I use the app Next Door, That's nextdoor.com. That's a great app to get to learn to get to know your neighbors, really. So I announced them on Nextdoor, and I've got people that drive up and they stay in their cars. I've got people that some of my students bike up, from a neighboring town, and they're hanging out, and everybody's social distance. It's all cool. But yeah, I do those on Saturday nights for about an hour or so, and it gives people something to look forward to. And like you said too, it gives me something to look forward to too, because it's really hard when you have all these gigs scheduled and they're all canceled. And a lot of people can relate to this too. You can practice for the sake of practicing, but when you have a show coming up, it gives you more inspiration and motivation to practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's been really cool. And it's in California, we've been sheltered in place for longer than most other places. So it has been a little bit more emotionally grueling. But I think these are some of the ways that, we're just getting by, and music always brings everybody together.
Yeah. I started the self-isolation, actually, I think 2 weeks before it was, before it came mandatory, basically.
Wow. Probably because you were out in public a lot, and you probably.
No, just because I wanted to be careful. I had been following the coronavirus thing. I have been following it since the end of December already. And I had a little bit of a feeling that this would get really bad. Wow. So I did my last gig. I played at the Microsoft Theater with Diego Verdaguer and Amanda Miguel, March 3rd. And that was my last gig and my last time I actually went out in public, like, besides going grocery shopping. Yeah, because after that I was like, this is gonna get out of control, and I'm gonna do my part to try to flatten the curve. I tried to tell other people about it, but people weren't really understanding it yet because it wasn't that bad yet. But I was like, I'm gonna do my part.
Yeah.
So it's been like 5 or 6 weeks already. So I'm like, I'm going nuts.
Yeah, but you know what though? I mean, first of all, you sound awesome. So, and it's really cool that you're doing the Facebook Lives. And you know what? I think you should stick with doing them when you're inspired, because you tell people to, and I'll put the links in the show notes for people, but people sign up for the notifications. So this way, when Katja's going to go on, with her impromptu concerts, and you get to check out, her playing and all that kind of stuff. It'd be really, really cool. And, in a few weeks, hopefully, we'll be not sheltered at home anymore, and we'll be able to go out and share our music with the world again.
Yeah, I'll probably start, or I will try to do one Facebook Live from my artist page the next time, because, of course, I'm maxed out 5,000, like many, many years already on my personal page. But I haven't really used the time to do much on my album page. I will try to go live on that one. I've never done that before. See what happens. So I'll send you a link to that one too. So maybe people can follow me on that page, because I can't accept any more friends on my personal page. So.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. So definitely send me both of those links, and then I would encourage you to tell the people that are following you on your regular Facebook page, tell them to follow your artist page, and just put a post there, with the link, so this way they could follow you there and notifications.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. I'll do that. I'm so bad with stuff like that with the Facebook. Social media is overwhelming me, but I guess now's the time to work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I wanted to thank you for your time, and, also for your playing. It's awesome. And folks, you can get that book on her website. I'll put the link in the show notes. I'll put the link to her website, to, all the social media ways that you could reach Katja. And definitely, when things open up again, you could check her out live here locally in Los Angeles. And I'm sure you're going to be touring with somebody real soon. Thank you so much, Katja, for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And, have a great evening.
You too.